10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson, thank you very much for making us a part of your Veterans Day Monday. And a shout out to all the veterans and those that currently serve our country as well. Thank you for your service. And you certainly will be in the thoughts of the Jake and Ben show today.
You have it in your family?
Yeah. A lot. Well, I know a lot of it. But both my grandfathers, very proud of that, by the way.
In World War II?
Yes. One was stateside as an engineer in the Army. And the other under Patton in North Africa.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then one of Merrill's Marauders in Burma. Two, pretty wild campaigns. So, pretty cool. You?
Yeah, both my grandfathers. Now, my grandfather was 16 and lied to get into the Navy. And I don't think either of them were ever, in action, which I'm very thankful for. I think they were both on their way over, though, as things were winding down. And then one of my grandfathers was in, what do they call that? In Japan, rebuilding Japan after.
Reconstruction?
Yeah, Reconstruction. And then...
That's awesome.
My kid's grandfather was in the National Guard, and then my dad was a reserve, so in Vietnam. You joined the reserve so you didn't have to go fight back then.
Wise move.
Yeah, right.
But no, that's awesome. Service is what it is.
Yeah, there's service.
Great.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so shout out to all that. My dear friend Chris he's out now in his 40s, but he was making a career of the Army. And it was so interesting to talk to about things that he'd experienced that he could actually tell you about, which is a wild thing to think about.
Yep.
You know what I mean? He's like, well, I can't get into detail on this one. I can't, but it was crazy.
I like that our grandfathers faced a draft, our fathers faced a draft, and we don't. And that's progress.
I told you, I've told you this. I've told this on the air. My grandfather was drafted by the Cincinnati Reds and then was drafted by Uncle Sam 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
And then did not have the opportunity to play baseball upon return.
Yeah.
So
that's the sacrifice.
Yep.
That's the sacrifice we're talking about and are grateful for.
Grateful for, absolutely. Yeah. Good word. All right, Ben. So happy Veterans Day to everyone listening. This is up for debate, honestly. So I will defer to you on where you want to start about BYU's 22-21 win over Utah. And I got to tell you, before you pick where we start, I'm really excited about this show. This show is really I want to try not to get annoyed because I feel like with some of this stuff I could get annoyed very easily. But these shows are so fun to do. We have storylines, we have controversies, we have all sorts of wild stuff to talk about. And so before we dive in, I want to start out by saying today is the day to use the call-in feature.
Yes, absolutely.
Today is the day. So if you have feelings to share, if you have points to make, reactions to something that we say on the show, any and all of the above, we happily open that avenue to you and will utilize your feedback throughout the show.
Download the KSL Sports app on your phone, iPad, whatever. Bottom left-hand corner, there's a little button that says call in. You can just record up to 60 seconds. Usually, I can't imagine you're going to have a 60-second take. That's a long time. But you record it, and it gets sent right to us, and we can play it on the show.
And I'll speak for myself here, Ben, but I'm pretty sure you're on board with this. I have no issue whatsoever with people disagreeing with me.
Oh, of course, no.
I will have an opinion today on a variety of subjects, and you're welcome to disagree. I've got no problem with that. Some people in this business are like, how dare you think I'm wrong? I don't think you or
I'm
myself
wrong most of the time.
are one of those. So actually, we welcome it because I think the discussion is what's fun and productive and all that stuff. So call in is at your disposal. Knock yourself out. We want to hear it.
Let's start off with what I think is the least controversial take that you can have, and I think everybody will agree with, truthfully. Thank goodness the rivalry is back. It is so much fun. BYU is playing awesome. Utah is playing terribly. And they both had their most exciting game of the year. Maybe if you want to say BYU Oklahoma State was more exciting. It did have more scoring in the second half, so I would listen to that. But what's on the line, the emotion involved, the passion was awesome. And all week I talked about, Utah probably shouldn't even be in a one-possession game in the fourth quarter. BYU should win 33-7. The rivalry does not allow for it. The speed, the violence with which the game is played immediately upon kickoff is amazing. Utah was playing so hard to the point where it made me think, what the hell have they been doing the rest of the year? Because that looked like a totally different team. Like the passion was there that I just have not seen for at least 4 weeks from the Utes. So, and I think that's a result of the rivalry. And the rivalry was really fun to have back and exciting to watch. So my least controversial take to start off was that I'm glad it's back, and I simply cannot wait for next year's game.
Well, yeah, duh, Ben.
But, it goes away, and then you're like, well, it's gone. It's not that important or whatever. We treat it flippantly. No, it's back, and not only is it back, it has conference implications. There's a chance these two teams, obviously not this year, but in the future it will happen at some point, will play in a conference championship game, which is going to be also incredible.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for that. But that was my simple takeaway, that I love the rivalry, and I'm glad it's back.
Well, okay. I'll start somewhere else.
Okay.
I have been asking a simple question week in and week out regarding Utah. How many points will it take for Utah to get a victory? I think it's been a really interesting conversation because the offense is the conversation with Utah, of course. And my beloved co-host, Ben Anderson's answer was?
Did I say 21?
You said 24.
24.
And you were absolutely correct.
Yeah.
1,000% correct. See, Ben, you need to give yourself credit more. I was setting you up to start the show with,
Celebrate
God,
my
was
victories.
I right? Why doesn't everybody listen to me all of the time? And as we begin our discussion about the game itself, remind yourself that the ultimate problem was the Utes could not score 24 points.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah.
Remind yourself, you could not score 24 points. That was the problem.
Right.
You had to get to 24. You got to 21. Long and short of it. You didn't get to 3.
No.
So that's not what we're talking about today.
Broke double digits.
But you could not get to 24 points. That ain't a high bar.
No, it's not.
And I know BYU's defense is good and Utah has struggled, but that's what we're talking about here. They could not get to 24 points.
And I haven't looked at the analytics of it, and I don't think I'm going to. But here's the other part of that. Expected points per drive, or based on field position, which is a stat that you get. You start your drive at the 25-yard line versus the 40-yard line. Considering where Utah's last 3 drives started, with BYU punting out of their own end zone and Utah getting the ball at midfield, the expected points per drive there have to be 3, 4, 5 on at least back-to-back drives. And if not, 3 drives where Utah was at midfield with the ball to start and recorded 0 points in the second half.
That's the big stat. 0 points in the second half.
That's the number.
That's what lost them the game.
I totally agree.
Now, shout out to Retzloff and Chase Roberts, for that matter, for ultimately, and the kicker. Goodness.
Really fair.
For making the kick. But for making the plays that they needed to make down the stretch for BYU to win that game. Chase Roberts was catching balls off his shoelaces. And I think it's really interesting if you want to get into why that was happening. But he was pulling balls off the carpet the whole night and doing a terrific job making the few plays that BYU was able to make. I mean, Utah's defense stood up. And BYU's defense played fine, for that matter, generating a couple of turnovers. BYU's offense wasn't great.
No, it wasn't.
I mean, they needed the kickoff return. But they got the point is, it is like watching 2008 Utah in a way where they make the plays that need to be made at the time.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's pretty.
And they come away with those wins, Like Oregon State was a good team in 2008. They weren't a great team. They took the Utes right down to the wire, but what happened? Brian Johnson made the plays to go out there and to win, which is a way to win football games. I mean, this BYU team is, don't Utah my BYU or whatever. Well, this is the Utah blueprint of how to win, and BYU executed it fine. But isn't it funny that they need a special teams play to get enough points to get there? They need a last second drive. I mean, it's all these things that we watched in Utah in the late aughts.
Absolutely.
I mean, it really is crazy true. But that's credit to them for winning the football game because they did that.
20 to 15 first downs, BYU won. More total yards, 340 to 260. It's actually 339 to 259 for BYU. They won there.
But hit that number for Utah real quick.
For what, total yards?
Yeah.
259 yards.
It's not enough.
112 passing yards.
Not enough.
I think it might have been 0 in the second half. 147 rushing yards, which is fine. Probably a little low, but fine. And again, the big issue, 3 turnovers for Utah, 0 for BYU. The fact that this was a 1-point game, as lopsided as those numbers are,
is pretty crazy.
But we have to talk about the final drive.
Okay. I'm curious to hear your take about it because I definitely have one.
I have 2 thoughts. One, and it's why I tweeted this out. As soon as Utah gave the ball back to BYU, I knew it was over. Because BYU has shown an ability this year, all year, to put together 2-minute drives. They are really good at it. As soon as Utah gave them the ball back, they should have known that was essentially giving up the game. And I believe that.
Could not get a first down.
Utah. Yeah.
Utah.
Oh, yeah.
The game was over with a first down.
There was a 3rd and 1 where, again, Utah did not get it right. They ended up getting the holding call. It backs them up.
They do it again.
They punt.
Right.
As soon as Utah gave them the ball, they knew it was over. Do we want to get into the penalty? The flag?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was the story of the game, unfortunately.
I hate that call so badly. I hate that call. 4th and 10, 15 yards away from the action on an inherently subjective call. I hate that flag. Was it a foul? Sure. Did he hold him? Sure. I hate that flag. I hate talking about games decided by that. And it's only part of why, again, Utah lost because they lost the turnover battle 3-0. They had 11 passing yards, 112 passing yards, and they didn't score in the second half. That's why Utah lost the game. I hate that flag in that position so badly. And if you want to say, well, if it's a flag in the first quarter, it's a flag in the fourth quarter, whatever, that can be your ethos. You can buy that. I hate that flag so badly. I hate that we have to, A, if you're asking if it's a flag or not, it's already controversial. B, if you need 6 different versions of the Zapruder film, slowed down to 1/32 speed and zoomed in to see whether or not he dislodged the player, I hate it. And then I have a third, more of a hypothetical, that is the idea that if the role was flipped, if they didn't call a flag, if they didn't throw a flag on that play, there is not a soul on the planet that would go back and look at that matchup and say, that's why BYU lost the game, because they didn't throw a flag there. That is not such a blatant and obvious call. It's a discretionary call that the ref gets to make. It's his discretion. He's got that job. But if they don't throw that flag, nobody goes and looks at that and says, oh, well, they missed a call. Obviously, they missed a call there. That's why BYU lost. Nobody would say that. So if you want to say it's a 50-50 call, I will listen to it. But by all those markers, I hate it. I hate the flag.
Okay, I love it because I hate that take.
Great.
So we're going to be on both sides of this thing, which is nice. All right, again, hit the call in and let's see how that goes. I'll start with this. I have a buddy who's a coach, and he told me once what he tells his team, that your basic expectations are for referees to be just terrible. And so if you put the game in the hands of the referees, that is your fault. If it comes down to that, if it came down to a bad call or a good call for that matter, that's your fault. So you should not have the game be in the hands of the referees to begin with.
Totally fair.
And you avoid if you score more than 0 points in the second half,
you win the game.
We're not talking about any of this.
Yeah, you get
so if you
one
want to
more
talk
first
about
down.
If you want to talk about what people are focused on and talking about and what they would never notice or whatever, if They had scored 7 points in the second half.
3
points.
Yeah. They still have to go for a touchdown. I get it. But yeah, you score
would
7 points, it's over.
Be a topic. So if we want to talk about what people would be talking about it or not, that is the point. If we want to assign responsibility, often when failure comes, look inward. And the idea that you put the game in the hands of the referee is not their fault. It's your fault. And that referee crew was consistent about something. They were consistently terrible.
Yeah.
Consistently terrible.
They were bad in the first half, and they stayed bad.
Now, as for that call, I do not for 1 second feel bad for Utah, as I would not feel bad for any team in this circumstance. And honestly, I think he held him. I think it was pretty obvious, but that is not the point. Ben, if you were making yourself wealthy by defrauding people.
Sure.
And you defrauded 100 people because you knew the people investigating you were morons.
Uh-huh.
And they finally caught you on 101. You could not say, boy, that was a terrible audit by you.
Yeah.
Like, you got away with it a zillion times. Now, you know enough coaches, as I do, that in these circumstances, the messaging to players is not, hey, guys, be really careful not to break the rules because we cannot have a penalty here. You guys have got to be on your P's and Q's. No. The message to players is referees are chicken S, and they're not going to throw a flag on anything, so feel free to maul that guy. So that is the strategy from teams. It was the strategy for Karl Malone in that
against Clyde Drexler
in
on the
that
inbound
shot
pass
in Houston.
Yep.
It is the strategy all the time. LeBron, I love to criticize LeBron because often he annoys me. But one of his complaints that was legit, he said, it's hard for me in final seconds because my best play is to go to the hoop, and every time I do, I just get mauled because the referees are never going to call it. And so it's a strategy for teams. And so if you get called on your strategy, not my fault. You should have been telling that corner, do not hold, do not interfere. We cannot afford a penalty. It's 4th and long. Trust me, they're desperate. Whatever you do, don't blow it. But the message often is, and I don't know about this circumstance, so spare me. But the message often is, hey, they're not going to call it. They're scared. They listen to Ben Anderson on the radio and says, the moment's too important to be affected by a referee. So you hold that guy. That's what coaches are telling. So if you get caught defrauding people on your 102nd time and you go, hey, this investigation was flawed, I'm not going to feel bad for you. You made a living breaking the rules because you found a flaw in the system. And then when you finally get caught or whatever, there was a team that lost, Ben, on a 2-point conversion where they called the pick play. And I wish I could remember who it was. I want to say it was like Boise State and somebody trying to upset somebody. And it came down to a 2-point conversion, and they ran a obvious pick where one player just mutilated the corner, and the receiver was standing there, and they made the call, and it lost them the game. And I don't feel bad for them because you know what? Every team runs a stupid pick play when they have to have a pass. Every team does it. And so if you get busted flagrantly breaking the rules, I don't feel bad for you. I don't feel bad for what comes next. And I don't feel bad for the fan base. And I certainly don't feel bad for the athletic director. And I know we need to get into his behavior more later. I don't think we have time to dig into this. But I don't feel bad for you. I don't. You should have scored more than 0 points in the second half. They needed 24 to win. Ben Anderson said it. Again, I'm listening to Ben. He said 24 points. That is not too much to ask of any football team.
Especially when you have 21 at halftime.
Mylanta. And you know what? We can talk about how Utah likes to win football games. There's some, what's his name, who's in San Francisco?
Shanahan.
There's some Shanahan there.
Oh, there was a time. That was what I was watching the whole game. This was Shanahan.
We're up at half. We're going to sit on this, and the defense is going to win it because that's how I win games. I remember, Ben, and Gull, I'm sorry I'm dominating, but I remember I sat in a press conference at Oregon where Utah just got done the Hackett game where he did where they just got done taking Oregon to school. And Witt said after, I didn't. No, somebody asked me. It wasn't me. Anyway, sorry for forgetting. But no, I did ask him. I said, hey, you just pants these guys. What's the difference between this and other times where you've, sat on leads? I didn't put it that frankly. But he goes, oh, this is Oregon. You got to keep the pedal down. They could come out back at any moment. And I always thought, like, why don't you think you're playing Oregon every week?
Every week, yeah.
Keep the pedal down. But no, it's this thing where it's like, I've got to win this game my way. And his way is sitting on a lead. So if you scored 7 points, you don't care about the hold that, what's our Bob blah blah quote?
Yeah.
How dare you, prosecute me for a crime you noticed?
Yeah, right.
So, I don't know, Ben. I don't agree. And I don't feel bad for a controversial call. And I'm not bailing out the refs because they're always terrible. And that crew in particular was terrible. That was a terribly officiated game. Terrible. But that one, hold or not, I don't feel bad for you. You should have told your corner and be like, whatever you do, don't hold this guy. Don't interfere with it. Don't give him the automatic first down. We'd rather have a 4th and 18 situation because that was a prayer. I'd rather have him throw up a prayer than have some weak flag go their way. So don't even touch him. That should be the message to the player.
I do agree with you. And this is where part of the officiating thing that I hate as well is make them make a play. And you know where the play was being made? Utah's defensive line mauling BYU's offensive line. Every single possession late. Every snap late in that game, Utah's D-line had a huge advantage, and the refs negated that. Now, again, you're right. It was a hold. I'm not even saying it's not a hold. It was. I recognize that. I don't think it had any impact on the play.
But that shouldn't matter. And they should be consistent and whatever. But never make or not make the call. I disagree with that based on the situation. Make it or don't make it. But the fact that they don't make it, coaches know they won't make it.
Correct.
And so they coach that way. They do.
Yeah, but it's a discretionary call. It is. It's a 50-50 call, and the ref used his discretion. Am I going to throw it or not? Because you could throw it on every play, and they use their discretion on when to use it and not if they think it's affecting the outcome.
Yeah, well, I don't. I never agree with that, though. So at least I've been consistent about it.
But again,
I don't agree with...
I don't feel bad for Utah in the slightest. I don't feel bad for it. This was a great game. This was a great chapter in this rivalry. Absolutely fantastic chapter. And part of it is because we had another epic postgame.
All right, we can get into that. Do you want to put that in top 3 or do you want
number 1? It's got to be number 1. That was the big story.
Well, yeah, and that had to do with the call, of course.
Absolutely. It is a part of the reason why we're talking about the call. But it's awesome. I can't wait to talk about it. I kind of thought this was a boring second half. Like, I was a little bit...
Well, nobody scores, Ben. It's rough to get into it.
It was a pretty rough second half. Mark Harlan saved it, so I'm excited to talk about it.
All right. We'll dive in. The now penalized Mark Harlan in multiple ways. Stay tuned. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
The only place I like to drink ginger ale is on an airplane. Isn't that the truth? Give me the ginger ale.
For some reason on a plane, it's like, ooh, ginger ale sounds great now.
Give me a ginger ale. Also, when you come back through, could you give me the Bloody Mary mix? Not a Bloody Mary. Give me the mix.
What do you do with the mix?
You just drink it because it's basically like spicy V8.
Oh.
I want to talk to a stranger with bad breath on the plane.
I don't have time to dive into why you like spicy V8.
I'm telling you, because it's
something's wrong with you.
Low in sodium.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's time to break down the biggest stories of the day. This is the top 3 stories of the day on KSLSports.com. On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Want to remind you to nominate the U Sports volunteer for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at KSLSports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals. Time for the top 3 stories of the day. KSLSports.com, brought to you by J. Brooks Jewelers. 2 locations. Ben's favorite on Winchester Street across from Fashion Place Mall, and Christian's favorite at Traverse Mountain in Lehigh.
Where's your favorite?
I know you guys are biased.
You're an online guy.
I like them both.
Yeah, you're an online guy.
I am not.
You don't like to leave the house.
Actually, you've mentioned, we don't need to dwell on this, a conflict between my wife and myself.
Oh, okay.
I'm very much, I want to, like, we're shopping for chairs right now. Like, I want to go sit in it.
Yeah.
And she's like, let's just order it.
I'm
Which
with
you're an online guy, I can tell.
Some things.
All right, what's first?
Number 1, Utah Athletic Director Mark Harlan had some infamous post-game comments.
12 years, this game was absolutely stolen from us. We were excited about being in the Big 12, but tonight I am not. We won this game, someone else stole it from us. Very disappointed. I will talk to the commissioner. This was not fair to our team. I'm disgusted by the professionalism of the officiating crew tonight. Thank you.
Mark Harlan, that's him hijacking a press conference and complaining about the officials.
Whit knocking the chair over. Also, we're hoping to play Whit today at 11:30, which I also cannot wait to hear what Whit says 48 hours later. I love this so much. I know so many people are coming after Harlan. I love this. This was awesome. If you think your team got cheated, go find the biggest megaphone you can and tell people. And he did. I love that he did this. I'm thrilled that he did this. Did he deserve a $40,000 fine? Sure. He knew it was coming. He knew what he was doing. He's not an idiot. Mark Harlan had to go fight for his guys. He felt like they were wronged. Obviously, Whit felt like they were wronged, hence knocking the chair over on his way out. The team felt like they were wronged. And you're the athletic director. You have to have your guys back. And I love that he went up and did it. I love it.
Wow, we're opposite ends of the spectrum today. I like this. I've seen a lot of general managers, which is what I'd compare an athletic director to, not a coach. You say his guys. They're not his guys. They're Whit's guys. He's not the coach of the team. He is the athletic director, which is the boss / adult. All right? Now, I don't blame coaches for going scorched earth on referees like you're talking about. I think it's a little emotional for my taste. Like, settle down, Beavis. But I at least can relate to that. Sure. They're on the sideline. They're in the action. They're talking to the officials. Let me put it this way. I watched Kevin O'Connor behave like an absolute lunatic.
Yeah. He used to sit about, 12 rows up, 8 rows up?
Lunatic.
Yeah.
Tom Homo might be a lunatic. Anyone that into Halloween has got to be a little lunatic, in my opinion. But in his behavior watching games or something like that, I don't know. But I can tell you this about Kevin O'Connor. GM, lunatic, personally invested, yelling, screaming. How many rows up was it, Ben? Like 4 or 5 rows up?
I think it was 8. It was something
8 rows
like that.
Yeah. Just far enough away that he couldn't, act like a unprofessional and go on to the court before it was appropriate to do so. I never once, Ben, and I covered Kevin O'Connor for a long time, never once saw him hijack a press conference to complain about officials.
I'm trying to remember if he ever got fined.
Once. I never saw him hijack a press conference for anything, ever. And that guy was a straight Looney Tune when it came to watching his team and complaining about officials and thinking he got screwed and all that sort of thing. Complete Looney Tune. Never did that. The good doctor, Dr. Chris Hill, passionate advocate for his athletic department. Passionate. Do you know what he did in his most infamous complaint about the refs moment? Do you know what he did?
He went behind the scenes.
Oh, what a concept. If I'm going to act like a lunatic, let me not act like a lunatic in public. Let us never forget the moment with Larry Kryskowiak.
That out of control, and they all do it. You know that, Bobby. They're supposed to be good officials.
Hello. All right. Okay. I don't recognize that voice. Maybe one of our coaches. Okay.
So at least the good doctor had the common sense to take his undressing of good old Bobby back behind the curtain where it belongs. Now, he should have picked a better room
No,
because
that's the
being
best
right
room.
next down,
I love that.
door to the, but at least he's not acting like a lunatic in public, let alone acting like a lunatic to literally get the team penalized, which I know
He
is
got himself
flying under
penalized,
the
$40,000.
deserved every penny.
Fine.
And then let me add on to this. From a PR standpoint, his emotions are going to cost them because, Ben, you were at Big 12 Media Day with me. What was Utah's messaging? We love it here.
Yeah.
We are happy to be here. We're happy to be amongst you. Because what happened the previous calendar year, Utah and their fans dumped all over the Big 12 for a whole year. And Utah waited for the last possible second to decide to go into the Big 12. The messaging had to be at Big 12 Media Day. We love it here. We're excited about it. How many times did Witt himself say that over and over and over and over again? If you want to have clout in a conference, which is a thing, and you want to be listened to and weighted, which Utah, under the good doctor Chris Hill, was very savvy about, very savvy in the Pac-12. Larry Scott told Chris Hill in a meeting, hey, you're lucky to be here. Shut up. He went from that to basically handing Mark Harlan a real loud interest in the conference. To come into a new conference and just submarine your credibility like that is embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for him today. That's embarrassing. It's one thing for a coach to be mad about it for his guys for your reason, but that's not Mark Harlan's job. Not at all.
To submarine the Big 12 is not great. That was a mistake. That was a line I bet he regrets.
Oh, well, letting somebody too emotional do something leads to a mistake. What a surprise.
I have zero problem with him going out there and berating the referees. I have zero problem with it at all.
Do it in public or do it, in private. Do it in private.
Why?
Do it where...
Why are we always protecting the referees like they are untouchable? And do you know why?
No, you're protecting your program.
No, because they're trash. Because the referees are bad in every sport.
I don't like
which
them
I
either.
get it's difficult. But because they're so bad, the only way to protect how bad they are is to pretend they're untouchable. We make them untouchable because they're so bad at their jobs that we say you can't even criticize them because the second you reveal that they're bad and you agree that they're bad, it ruins the whole charade. And he finally said, this was bad. This was stupid. In our opinion, it was stolen.
I know.
That's fine with me.
Well,
and I love that from Mark Harlan. And by the way, what do you think the average grade fans would give Mark Harlan during his tenure right now at the University of Utah? Utah fans. Not great.
It probably went from C to D overnight, though.
It's probably not great. I like that he stood up and showed up for his program.
Now that you say it is a little desperate, in my opinion. It is the move of somebody that emotional has got to be a little desperate, which is a little interesting, I suppose. But Ben, he's not the one to deliver that message. Just like that is not my point, and I think you know that. I understand your point. That is not my point. Letting referees off the hook.
Sure.
That is not his job to deliver that message on behalf of the football team. And by the way, I love this. Stick up for his guys. Listen, those players are, Ben, you've been in a bunch of, I've seen players in their early 20s handle press conferences in tough situations like professionals, like magicians, like the emotional maturity. And after this game was no different. The emotional maturity of those players to handle it for themselves, handle a difficult situation for themselves, handle it with their team, handle it internally. You're selling them short. With their low, you got to stick up for, not the athletic director doesn't. You know where the athletic director needs to stick up for him? Behind the scenes.
No.
Yes,
See,
that's their job. It's not their job to complain, Ben.
This is an NBA coach getting thrown out of a game to stick up for his guys. That's what Mark Harlan did.
He's not a coach.
He's a representative of the program. He absolutely is. He's a representative of the program. Sometimes Mark Cuban had to get fined to stand up for his team when he thought they were getting run by the refs. Sometimes you have to go out there and jump on the grenade. And I think that's what Mark Harlan did.
No, it's not him. It's not him that needs to do that.
I disagree. I think he did a good job.
I think he was way out of line and way emotional. You got to be the adult, dude. Good heavens.
He wasn't that emotional.
Get a hold of yourself.
Like he's screaming like I am.
Good heavens. Tom Homo ate 10 losses in a row. Did he hijack a press conference and complain about it?
I don't think so. This has more to do with Utah losing 5 straight than it does losing to BYU.
Then not my problem. And you know what? You handle your business. Obviously, you're having trouble controlling yourself.
No, I think he jumped on a grenade. I love it. I love that he did this. I think this was the right move.
Number 2, are the Jazz ruining the tank? They beat the Spurs over the weekend.
And I'm glad when he came out, he still didn't apologize to the Big 12. He didn't say he was wrong. He didn't say he was wrong.
He should be begging for forgiveness.
He doesn't care. Whatever. He's got Utah in the Big 12.
It matters. Being ostracized by the league matters.
The Jazz go out and beat San Antonio. And I thought their most enjoyable game to watch. The lone win over Chicago. They just shot really well. It was an easier victory. I thought this was actually a pretty exciting game to watch. They had to overcome adversity to win.
Yeah, I would agree. Will obviously listened to the media, played Filipowski more, so it's a good thing they spoke up. He played well down the stretch. Collier's a funny one. Did you see how he got a start, by the way, if you didn't have a chance to see the game. Keontae George didn't play. Collier steps into the starting lineup, which was a bit of a surprise, as we were debating before the pregame show what the starting lineup was going to be. Man, he's got a lot of skill. I think I saw you tweeting about it, right? They don't guard him at all. It's like his second. It's his second NBA game, and there were full possessions where they didn't even guard him. Did you see that 1-3 he took where he just looked one way?
Yeah,
and then looked the other.
Wemby is standing inside the free throw line.
He's like, I have to shoot this.
Yep, he shot 6 threes. He missed them all. That's the playbook.
I'm rooting for him to be a learner. Because if he can learn to, not even learn to be Kyle Korver.
No, he's got to be Chris Dunn.
To learn to be serviceable. I'm with you. He could be really good.
He's got some real point guard chops.
He's got some bite to him. He's got some size. He's already got a man body. There's a lot of good there, but if the other team is just leaving you alone, and it's one thing to leave him alone in the corner or something, but at the top of the key, the point guard, they just don't guard at the top.
Yep.
He can't exist that way. So I hope he puts it together and starts learning to shoot the ball just a little bit.
Chris Dunn, through his first 5 seasons in the NBA, when he was very much a borderline NBA player, shot 29% from three, just a thousandth of a percent under 30%. So he's about a 30% three-point shooter. And now over his last 3 years, I don't think Isaiah Collier's ever going to get up to here. He's up to 40% from three. He only takes 1.5 a game. It's not like he's a shooter, but he can shoot if you guard him from the free throw line while he's the three-point line. That's what Collier has to do. He has to make open ones, and he's never going to be prolific. And if he doesn't, he's not an NBA player.
All right, next.
Number 3, huge Big 12 conference title implications. Kansas, they beat Iowa State over the weekend.
Kansas going to the Big 12 title game. That's what I'm reading.
2-4 in league, Kansas. Yeah, I think that ship may have sailed, but they were so close in all of their games. Probably shouldn't be a surprise that that scale tipped a little bit because it's not like they were getting blown off the field.
You're talking about Kansas.
Yeah,
they were more within close games than not.
They were within a field goal of every game, and they kept losing.
But we kept waiting throughout the Big 12 season. We'll talk about it more in the Big 12 Power Poll tomorrow. Of just who gets the bad loss? Who mistakes their way out of a conference title run? And Iowa State may have done it.
All right, coming up next, we have gotten a submission or two for the call-in feature on the KSL Sports app. We are encouraging today, and we always encourage to a certain extent, but today especially, if you submit one, we'll get to it, unless you don't make inappropriate jokes or anything. But the more creative, the better, I would say. KSL Sports app, the call-in feature, you can record up to 60 seconds, hit send, and it goes right to Christian in the control room. Stay tuned. More next, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hey, bro. You hear us every day with our crazy opinions.
Hey, what you doing?
Well, now it's time to hear from you.
Hey, great show.
Download the KSL Sports app and fire off your thoughts with the call-in tab on the bottom of your screen.
Your show is fantastic. It's the one that captivates me the most.
You can tell PK to stop singing.
Cheap bang.
Let Jake and Ben know what you really think of the Jazz. Woo! Tell Hans and Scotty about your favorite barbecue spot or what color of tie JJ should be wearing on TV. The best entries will be played on the air. Download the KSL Sports app now and hit the call-in button to let your voice be heard.
I think you guys do an incredible job.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This segment brought to you by Peach Doors and Windows. Amazing home transformation begins with Peach, where 5-star reviews are the norm. Call them today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255. Also want to remind you about Win Tickets Wednesday. Don't miss your chance to win big every week on the KSL Sports Zone. Listen all day on Wednesday for your chance to win. All right. We're encouraging folks today to use the call-in feature on the KSL Sports app. Record your take about the rivalry game. And, Ben, we wanted to keep things, open. Whatever your take is, we're not judgy. We like to hear from all sides. You and I actually differ on most stuff today, which I think is interesting. I think less of you, obviously, but that's not the point because I don't want to.
We won't think of less of you for your takes
of our listeners. And it takes very little for Ben to do for me to feel less of him because, of course, I hold him in such high regard. He's still on a very high pedestal. There's a lot of room to drop. All right, so let's get to these. We've had a couple submitted. Christian, where are we going to start?
First up, this is Marcus.
This is Ute grad, BYU fan. Totally excited, obviously, for the Cougars win. But that Rose guy, he is a good quarterback. He should have been starting sooner, should have been in the games earlier in the year. Shout out to BYU's defense, second half. That was obviously amazing. And then the other part is, wanted to check the status of the cheerleader, team leader, or whatever it is that got hit in the head from a water bottle after the game was over. Hope they're doing all right.
Okay, shout out to Marcus. As a lot of people say that like fans are toxic and stuff like that, 99% of them are Marcus.
Correct.
Like rational.
Yeah, 1% is the moron who threw a water bottle and hit the cheerleader coach or whatever and knocked him out.
Can we tease? We'll get to Rose coming up in the 11 o'clock hour because I certainly have some thoughts and glad to get yours there, Marcus. But as far as the water bottle goes, and listen, it's become more of a trend this year. What was the other game we saw?
Texas was the big one.
Was the big one where we saw, there was another one. It was an SEC game where they started throwing stuff. Anyway, because Tim and I were watching, was it? I can't remember. Anyway, not the point. It's become more of a thing, and it's been a thing for we were talking in the other room about Lane Kiffin and the golf ball and him catching the spitter at Tennessee. And I know BYU fans remember, I think it was a St. Mary's game at the Marriott Center where they started throwing stuff. I don't want to get too extreme here, Ben, but they should go to the cameras, find those people, and give them the baton.
Those people are going to be prosecuted.
They should be.
And you're going to lose your season tickets. Like, there's going to be a lot of things. Yeah, you're going to be banned from the stadium. And rightfully so.
Cannot throw stuff.
You can't
Absolutely
hurt somebody. You can't hurt somebody.
Even if you, like, this is the worst situation, and unfortunately I don't have an update. I'm not sure. And that was something that surfaced on social media, yesterday?
We confirmed it at KSL Sports, by the way.
And awful behavior. The 2004 Utah BYU game, Ben, where Utah won and Gary Croton was too scared to come out to talk to the media after the game because he knew he was going to be fired. You know who came out to talk to the media? One Bronco Mendenhall, who was the defensive coordinator at the time, and the visiting locker room door was right there in the south end zone, right beneath the fans. And Bronco comes out and he's talking to the media, and you know what happened? Fans started kicking snow onto Bronco. It's awful.
It is. It's a bad look.
It's awful. Like, just don't. I mean, you can get away with almost anything at a sporting event, like yelling whatever and all the sort of things. You just can't go onto the field, and you can't throw stuff onto the field. And I don't understand what gets a hold of people. I just don't. I don't get it. It's terrible. Yep. That is a terrible look for everybody.
Of course.
And I hope they find.
It's not exclusive to Utah fans. You know what I mean?
It's not. Well, I just mentioned other games.
Morons. Yeah, it's exclusive to morons. So don't be a moron.
But those fans, should be punished. All right. Anyway, let's get to one more of this segment. We have others rolling in as well, so we'll get to them. In fact, coming up next.
Yeah.
Who's next?
Next up, this is our guy Blair.
Jake and Ben, I love you guys. Let me say, as a long-suffering BYU fan who spent 4 years from 2013 to 2017 getting my master's degree from the University of Utah, all I can say is, Zamaya Vaughn for president. Let's go.
Very funny.
Yeah.
You know, we have a lot of that in our community. And another thing about when people get focused on the toxic fans, there's so much crossover. You know, yesterday I was driving through a neighborhood and I saw a split flag, BYU in Utah, and it said something like, "This is a split home" or something like that.
Yeah.
And I absolutely laughed out loud in my car by myself. I was like, hilarious. That's awesome. There's a lot of that override. Grad school here, undergrad there. Grew up rooting for this, but went to school for this for a variety of reasons. I mean, there's so much of it.
Oh, they showed it a bunch during the broadcast. BYU fans, Utah fans sitting together. Clear friends, probably family members all hanging out together. Yeah, enjoyed the game.
There was not as much blue as I thought there would be.
No, that was a lie.
Yeah,
the Utah fans were all selling their tickets. Of course, that was a lie.
Turned out to be true. So, I don't know. Lie star by we heard it from a Ute fan.
3 guys sold it. 3 guys sold their tickets.
Yeah, it wasn't that many. It didn't turn out. All right, we'll get to more Collins coming up next, and we will talk about Brandon Rose because that was an interesting part of the storyline for the game as well. And I'm curious to where people are landing on Harlan. Are you like Ben, celebrating his behavior, or like me, calling it buffoonish? Weigh in. More next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.